Let's talk about a word that causes a lot of arguments in the corporate world: moonlighting. Is it a betrayal of your company? Or is it just survival in today's economy? We're going to dive into an argument that says this whole issue isn't really about ethics at all, but is a direct result of how the modern workplace is designed. So, let's get into it.
So, right off the bat, the analysis we're looking at zeroes in on the language itself. Words like moonlighting and unethical. They're not neutral, are they? They immediately frame the employee as the one doing something wrong. But the argument here is maybe we should look past those labels and ask a much bigger question. Why is this happening in the first place?
And this right here is the big shift in thinking the source wants us to make. The idea is that this isn't about individual greed. It's that moonlighting is a symptom, a reaction to a system that for many people feels fundamentally broken.
Okay, so what exactly is this broken system? Well, the first piece of the puzzle is what this analysis calls the corporate contradiction. And it's this huge, glaring gap between how well companies are doing and how their employees are really doing. You look at one side of the coin, and you've got companies just crushing it. We're talking record-breaking profits, revenues through the roof. The shareholders? Oh, they're ecstatic. The numbers, like this 23% jump, look absolutely incredible. But then, you flip that coin over, and what about the people actually making all that success happen? For them, the story is completely different. We're talking wages that aren't moving, promised raises that just vanish, a big ol' zero. The difference is just, wow, it couldn't be more dramatic. And you know, this isn't just about the money in your bank account. It cuts deeper. It's about that old promise of security, that if you work hard, the company will have your back. But when you see these massively profitable companies laying people off by the thousands, what message does that send? It pretty much screams that your loyalty means nothing.
All right, so this feeling of being disposable leads us to what might be the most pointed critique in this whole argument. And it's all about hypocrisy. You know, are the rules of the game actually fair for everyone who's playing? The source asks a really interesting question here, and it's a good one. Just think about it for a second. When a company, say a consulting firm, has one of its employees working on projects for 3 different clients at the same time, what do we call that? And this is where that double standard really comes into focus. It's laid out so clearly here. When the company does it, one employee, multiple clients. It gets a gold star. It's called efficiency. It's smart business. But when an employee tries to do the exact same thing, one person, 2 jobs, suddenly it's unethical. Same action, totally different labels, all depending on who's making the money.
And this quote just nails it, doesn't it? The rules bend when it benefits them, but break when it benefits you. The point being made here is that these aren't some sacred, unchanging ethical principles. They're more like convenient guidelines that can be bent or ignored to keep things tilted in one direction.
So let's zoom out for a minute, because this argument doesn't just stay inside the walls of one company. The analysis shows how this same kind of double standard can play out on a massive global scale, creating these really different work cultures. And it draws this really sharp line in the sand. On one side, you have corporate cultures in places like the US or Europe, where there's this big push for flexible work, and side gigs are becoming normal. But then, the argument goes, you look at a place like India, and even within the same multinational corporation, the rules can be totally different. We're talking stricter policies, way longer hours, and just fewer options for personal autonomy.
Yeah, and the source is not mincing words here. It doesn't call this a difference in business policy or market strategy. Nope, it calls it what it sees it as: prejudice, a kind of cultural bias that decides how corporate power gets used in different parts of the world.
Okay, so after looking at the big picture, the corporate level, the global level, the argument brings it all the way back down to the most important person in the story, the individual employee. And it's about completely reframing why someone would even consider taking on a second job. The whole point here is that the easy answer, oh, it's just greed, is probably the wrong one. The real reasons, as laid out here, are way more fundamental. First, it's not greed, it's about responsibility. You know, taking care of your family. And ultimately, it's about plain and simple survival in a world that feels more and more uncertain. So, when you look at it this way, moonlighting stops looking like cheating and starts looking a lot more like personal risk management. It's like your own personal insurance policy.
I mean, what else are you supposed to do in a system where job security is a thing of the past and your loyalty can be tossed aside at a moment's notice?
And that really brings us to the final conclusion of this argument, the big takeaway. It's not about betrayal, it's about responsibility. What a company might see as a stab in the back is being reframed as an act of duty, a duty to your family, and a duty to secure your own future. And so we're left with this one last really powerful question to chew on. Companies do this all the time, right? They hedge their risks to protect profits. That's just smart business. So, in a world that's so unpredictable, why is it considered wrong when an employee does the exact same thing to protect their family? That's the question at the heart of it all.